Okay, I moved in about 33 years ago, and the house next door, probably about 22 years. There was a marriage breakup, and the family, the wife and the kids moved out, and it left the gentleman on his own. So I would say for the first 7 years, he lived there after the marriage broke up. I seen him come and going to his work. And after 7 years, he seemed to move out and pop in probably about once a week just to pick up mail. And at that point, I would communicate with him. I was able to, if I saw him, I would, I'd have a chat with him. And he always promised that he would deal with the garden. Because initially it was just the garden that affected me. His hedging was getting like second floor height. And so once a year he would send a gardener in and he would get the garden up to standard. So after 7 years, he moved out. He just stopped living there. And that's when he stopped maintaining his property. Now, at that point, his roof started to deteriorate with a few storms and I had issues with the chimney. So I got roofers in and I got the chimney repaired. Eventually, I met up with him and he agreed to pay his half. However, he didn't. He disappeared again. So basically, he's abandoned the property for about altogether near enough over 20 years anyway. And during that time, his roof has just deteriorated. Roof tiles have been falling off. Every storm, they've been flying onto the street. I did contact the local council who came, secured some of the loose tiles, and they removed his TV aerial, which was hanging off in a dangerous situation. So I did go to a lawyer to try and speak with a lawyer and ask advice, and they basically said, where is he? Well, I don't know where he is, so and for a legal sense, I couldn't do anything about it. So over the years, the last 20 years, it just got worse and worse. It got to a stage where I had water coming in my bedroom. I got a roofer out. The roofer basically said, you don't need to get your roof done right now. You probably got another 5 years. He could have done a wee maintenance job on my roof. However, he said the only way I could stop the water coming in to my bedroom was to re-roof my own property and extend it over and partly re-roof his property to stop the water coming in. So it's a financial cost to it. And so I did that. I got a new roof, extended it over to about a third of his roof to stop the water coming in. I got new gutters put on mine and extended them again over to his property, all in an attempt to save my own property. Then the problem started with the fly tipping. We have his back garden, my front garden. People just, because they know it's an abandoned property, people, especially during lockdown, have been renovating their own properties and they've thrown all the old debris into his back garden and the back lane. I have motorbikes, I have shopping trolleys, fire extinguishers, just kitchen tiles, bathroom tiles, and just debris everywhere. It's become, it could be a fire risk. If somebody puts that on fire, I don't know what's there. It could cause an explosion. Meanwhile, on a day-to-day basis, it really, really has affected me. I'd always planned, I brought 3 daughters up in this house, and as I always planned when my daughters moved out, I would sell up and move. My youngest daughter moved out about 5 years ago, and my plan was to sell up, move out, and buy myself another property. However, I couldn't sell this house. No one would buy this house. My house is in great condition. It's well maintained. It's got new windows, doors, central heating, lofts converted into a bedroom. I've invested every spare cash I've had on my property. However, I'm trapped here. I couldn't sell it even for half the price. So how does that affect me? People tap my door all the time. Builders come to my door, people passing, vans drive up and they chat my door and they'll ask me, who owns that property? These are obviously builders who are interested in buying the property to do it up. So it's in an area where houses sell quite quickly. At one point, that was a beautiful house next door. It's got a lovely, huge, big back garden, and kids used to play in it. Now it's just an eyesore. And every time I hear a noise next door, often it's rumbles from the property because of the ceilings are falling in. But I worry about squatters, and I worry about people breaking in. I worry about people setting fire to the property because it will attract vandals. Every time I leave my house, the neighbours stop me and ask me, as if I've got any control over it. Have you heard for him? What's happening with that house? I get asked constantly by everybody in the street, what's happening with the house. I have no idea. The man's abandoned it. He's abandoned his responsibility, and I'm left with the kind of financial and emotional impact of all that. Mm-hmm. So I'm trapped here. I used to love sitting in the garden. I used to love growing flowers. I used to have a life here. You go to that back garden, I'm just battling hedging that's grown up to near enough roof height. It's just a never-ending battle of financial issues as well, because every time there's an issue, I have to pay his cost plus my cost.
Well, it's clear from what you've shared with us so far, Pauline, that there's the financial aspect, the fear and the worry for the damage to your own property, and also the associated impact on your well-being that all this anxiety is having, and that ultimately, you feel powerless and that you feel stuck. And I think you've done a really good job there of trying to share with everyone else, the impact this is having on you. But we've also got some photographs that you shared with us. So I'm going to share those, and if you could just talk us through what we're looking at in these photos, just to try and illustrate for everyone else who's not living in this situation on a daily basis, what you're having to put up with. What are we looking at in this first photograph here, Pauline? Obviously, I can see there is some severely overgrown hedging or foliage there, but is that an aspect of the empty property that we're looking at?
Yes, that's the front entrance. You should see there should be a gate there, an opening. That's the entrance to his property. And my house is right next door to that.
And you can see that obviously that's completely obliterated, and you can't even see that there's actually a house behind there just by looking at it.
No, the postman can't get into that house anymore. And behind that entrance where the gate should be is full of debris. There's like a fire extinguisher there. There's all sorts of house renovation debris, all just behind where the gate should be.
Okay. And we've included some quotes that you provided when you initially were in touch with us, just to illustrate the impact that it is having on you. And you've clearly said there that the situation has seriously affected your mental health now, and that, you can't even enjoy, as you say there, sitting in your own garden on a day off.
No. There's all sorts of wildlife in there as well. There's all sorts of, there's the amount of foxes that come out that back garden. It's just, you can't have it in my garden. I used to like having grown flowers, and it's just a constant battle just to keep it, tidy. Mm-hmm. So that's the back garden. That's where his hedging is grown up to the roof. My house is right next door to that.
And you'd said, Pauline, is that right? So that hedging is grown right up to the roof past your window there. And is that?
Yes, it's right past. Yeah.
And then the structure that's collapsed here, what are we actually looking at? So
that's the back. It's where I sit out my back garden. That's what I face now. That was an extension that collapsed many years ago just now. You can actually see the washing pole where in his back garden there. So it's just showing you the height of the hedging and the weeds.
And you mentioned before about the fly tipping issue, and we can clearly see from this other picture, I can pick out some large items there. There's what looks like a motorbike, there's a supermarket trolley, and other items too.
Now that picture is a few years before. That was before lockdown. Since lockdown, there's a wall there, so there's houses on the other side of that wall. And during lockdown, it got 10 times worse due to the fact people have been renovating their houses, and rather than pay or take them to the dump, they've just been throwing them over the wall on top of the motorbike. And top it, there's carpets now, there's kitchen tiles, bathroom tiles. I think there's a part of a sink. So it's worse now during lockdown. I wouldn't even try and go out and take a photograph of it now. It's that high.
Well, you've understandably referred to that as a fly tipper's paradise, and it clearly
Yeah.
seems that way from what we can see. And we know that the longer an empty property stays empty, the more risk there is that it becomes a target for things like fly tipping and other types of antisocial behaviour. And that's clearly shown in these photographs.
See that part where the rubbish is? That's actually an access lane. Well, it was an access lane. It's totally blocked now.
Mm-hmm. And just to bring home what you were sharing with us earlier, that you said in these quotes here that it's not just about the financial drain. You're effectively living in daily fear of your house being destroyed, and that you feel trapped in the situation.
Well, I'm trapped. I can't sell up. I'm in a constant battle to save my property from that. What you see in the photograph, that's my bedroom, where all the water's been pouring in. That water's now travelled along the ceiling, and the ceiling in the bedroom, which is all cracked. I'll need to get a new ceiling at some point.
And you can clearly see in those other photographs that the damage to the render and the tiles, and that's obviously what's then caused, the leak into your property and the internal damage that you have there.
Yeah. Well, the gutters are all jam-packed. I've actually paid for his gutters to be cleared a few times. I paid for a guy to come out before it, when he was able to get into the property, into the garden, and put a ladder up just to remove all the debris out the gutters to stop, because it comes through to me if they're not cleared. Nobody can get in that property now. You can't get into the garden, it's that bad.
And then you've obviously said, I think it's fair to say that you feel at your wit's end with this situation. Obviously, you've tried various avenues and things, and that, as we've said before, you really do feel stuck, and you're the one that's left. It's not your property that's empty, but you're the one that's left in this situation, facing this anxiety and fear on a daily basis.
I just keep asking, where's it going to end? I don't see an end. And like I said, I brought 2-3, even my girls come here, it upsets them. It doesn't just upset me. This was a family home they grew up in, and they come for a visit, and, it upsets them.
So it's clear that it has changed how you feel about, your family home, where there should be happy memories and things. And you've said in this last quote that effectively feeling like a prisoner in your own home, because your plan had been, as you said, to look at selling up and moving on. But obviously you don't feel that's an option given the empty property next door.
If you drove up here and parked, you wouldn't get out your car once you see what it's attached to, because they would know they would have to pick up the financial cost of maintaining that. And it's no home anymore. It's a place that I have to stay now. I don't like even being here. I'd rather be at my work as much as I could. I don't enjoy being in my own home.
And I think it's fair to say from your experience that although there may be over 43,000 long-term private empty properties in Scotland, it's important to remember that, the house next door to you isn't just one of a number of those properties. You really have to remember that the human impact, and I think your story illustrates this really well, that it's, that the impact that it has on you. You mentioned on your family, and also, on your wider street as well. You said that it's, in an area where houses will sell well, but, and people are clamouring to buy that property, but yet it remains empty, and all the associated problems with that as well.
Yeah, I believe if that house was, put up for sale, it would sell. The houses sell quite good here, and I know I could sell my property if it wasn't for the problem next door.
And when you were taking us back to the start of the whole situation, Pauline, you mentioned that presumably there would have been a time, thinking back to how things have changed, there would have been a time when the house next door was a family home, and it was sort of maintained. Can you think back to that time and how things have changed from then until now?
It was a family home. You could hear kids playing outside, and the garden was lovely, and it felt homely. It was a lovely home, and there were lovely people, and now it's just a source of anxiety. It's no home anymore. I'm attached to something that's just getting worse, and I don't see an end to it. That's I lack hope. There's a lack of hope. If I knew, it was a time scale on it, within 3 years it'll be fixed, but there's no, it's been going on over near on 22 years. Now, if I'd known 22 years at the beginning of this, I sold up back then and left. Mm-hmm. I never ever believed for a minute that this would happen. and could be allowed to happen. I always felt the law wouldn't allow that. I'm quite shocked to find out that I have virtually no rights here.
And I think what you said in one of your previous quotes that you shared with yourself was the fact that, you know, you feel, what about your right of being able to enjoy your home, and that you feel that's been taken away from you?
Yeah, totally. The law doesn't protect me in any way. It protects the owner of next door, who can walk away and just not take responsibility. He has the right to be allowed to do that, but I don't have the right to be in a safe environment. Because the truth is, I worry about somebody breaking into that, setting it on fire. I've already had burst pipes coming through to my house. I've had to get the water board out. So I don't even know if there's gas and electric on next door, but I worry about fire, vandalism, somebody breaking in and just destroying it, which will impact on my property.
Well, thank you very much, Pauline, for taking the time to share your experiences with us. I know that, you know, you have to live through this on a daily basis, and it's not been easy, to say the least. And like you said, you know, the uncertainty of not having an end in sight. But we really do appreciate you taking the time today to sort of illustrate how, you know, one empty property can have such a devastating impact on, you know, someone else's daily life. And we do appreciate your time with that just now.
Thank you.